Hello ladies and gentlemen, Husk here, taking another look at WildStar. This time, I'm taking a look at Stormtalon's Lair, one of two level 20 dungeons, the first dungeons in the game. Stormtalon's Lair is located within the Exile area of Galeros, within the Thundercall village. You can enter the dungeon prior to level 20 if you wish, but you can't queue up for it in the dungeon finder until level 20. And let me say, right away, in my previous 1-15 leveling video, I was mostly negative, but did mention the promise I was seeing here and there in WildStar, and well, this is the promise I was talking about. I'll be giving an overview of the entire dungeon, a few tips, and of course my impressions of it, after having gone through it for the first time on my orange Spellslinger as a healer. You might also notice that my interface is different. I do think the default interface is really quite bad. Especially for healing, mainly due to the combined shield and health bars. So I am using a number of add-ons. I will link them in the description, but I might as well briefly go over them. So first of all, CustomFoV, it allows you to customize your field of view. I have it put at 65, the normal in WildStar is 50. A BetterQuestLog, an improvement on the rather terrible WildStar quest log. SimpleQuestTracker to remove some of the clutter on the screen. BijiPlates for vastly improved nameplates above enemies and allies. And Grid, another set of vastly better party frames. So the group I'm with are all from the same server. I didn't use the group finder and consist of a warrior tank, a stalker DPS, and 2 Spellslinger DPS. So here's a look at the High Priest. We'll meet him again near the end, but don't worry though, he is a coward and will teleport away. Instead he will send this bunch of mostly harmless bird people at you, simply AoE them down, they're really quite easy. Now there's 6 types of notable mobs in Stormtalon's Lair. Here we have a Thundercall Sentinel and a Thundercall Shaman. They always seem to come in pairs. They're surprisingly difficult if this is your first dungeon experience, but focus on the Shaman first as he heals the Sentinel. The Sentinel itself has one telegraphed ability, this big shockwave, that should be relatively easy to avoid, although the Sentinel does not have interrupt armor and could therefore be easily interrupted to get that moment of opportunity and clear these packs quicker. I was happily surprised to see that even such basic mobs such as these were already giving us somewhat of a challenge. You can see that it takes quite a bit of time to take them down, and I was quite surprised that I had to heal as much as I already am here. By the way, abilities wise, all of my abilities except for the first one are freeform. The number 1 ability is targeted and does require me to play the party frames game. Now the Thundercall Stormweavers are really quite nasty, one of the most dangerous creatures in the dungeon because it has 2 really strong abilities. Here it uses one of them, an AoE debuff called Static Paroxysm. It deals damage every second and increases magic damage taken by the player, but the real danger here is that it keeps stacking until either it is dispelled, which I hadn't put in my action set at this point, or until the Stormweaver is killed, so either you have to have a cleanse with you, or be able to kill the creature relatively fast. His other ability is called Contagion. He targets one of the party members and stuns them. It will then place a telegraph at the location of that party member, which deals damage every second or so, and especially when combined with the debuff, is very likely to kill said party member, unless it gets interrupted. So for this Birdman, definitely have interrupts with you, which we aren't doing as much as we should have at this point, and you can see what happens when we weren't prepared. Then we have the Thundercall Stormwatcher, accompanied by his pack of actual birdies called Thunderbeak Flesh Rippers. There's not much to say about the Flesh Rippers, they didn't seem to have any notable abilities, but the Watcher on the other hand has 2 abilities. Rampage, which is a frontal column telegraph where he knocks people down and then does a bunch of damage, and Hack and Slash, another frontal column telegraph where he hits multiple times for a lot of damage. As long as you keep dodging or interrupting here, this group of creatures should really be fine, though together they do have one of the biggest damage outputs. So here we have the first boss, Bladewind the Invoker. He comes with 4 Thundercall Channelers and has 3 different phases during the fight. Starting out in phase 1, he focuses on the target with the highest threat, which is, of course, hopefully your tank, and basically starts dealing a bunch of damage to that target while occasionally using this large cross-shaped telegraph that deals a ton of damage and has to be avoided. Ideally, only the tank takes damage in this fight, and you could simply have everyone else stay in the corners near one of the Thundercall Channelers. Healing wise, you really gotta focus on the tank and the tank alone, because he will be taking a lot of damage. When he reaches 50% of his health, he will disarm the entire group and enter phase 2. You can simply wait for the disarm to end, or go and pick up your weapon. During this phase, he is completely shielded and can't take any damage. An issue here is that tanks can generate threat on him during this phase. What you have to do is stick together and take down the minions one by one. He will start to cast lightning strikes on one group member at a time with this big red circle telegraph that follows you during it. You should as much as possible place this telegraph on the enemy minions as it damages them and significantly speeds up the second phase. If you do get hit, you get hit for a lot of damage and are stunned, so just don't get hit. Once the channeler dies, it will summon another orb of electricity, this wisp which travels around the room, dealing damage and stunning people they hit. They should be relatively easy to dodge though. Once all channelers are dead, Bladewind will remove his shield and once more disarm the party. This time you don't have much breathing room though, and the threat issue comes into place here, as he will likely target the healer the instant he goes into phase 3, which can be a poor dead healer within seconds. I tried avoiding this by using the Spellslinger ability Void Slip, which I immediately used when phase 3 started so I could avoid being disarmed and reset the aggro, because a dead healer is one of the last things you want. This part of the fight is very similar to phase 1, but you have two additional threats. First of all, the wisps from phase 2 remain and dance around the room, and secondly, he has a new ability with a very curious telegraph that targets almost the entire room except for a few tiny safe zones. It is a tough fight. Until everyone knows what they are doing during the phases, you are likely not going to get through it whatsoever. During this run, I think it took us about 3 tries before everyone got the mechanics here. It's definitely challenging and makes for a great first dungeon boss. After this boss, you'll run into one new mob, which I'll show in a moment, and these jump pads, one of which leads to an optional boss. There's 2 optional bosses in this dungeon, though only one spawns. In this case, we had Overseer Driftcatcher. He can be killed a lot quicker than the non-optional bosses, and although he is still tough, he's a lot more simplistic. He has a channeled stun that needs to be interrupted, as it of course keeps someone out of the fight, and starts dealing a high amount of damage if it isn't interrupted. He sometimes summons small wind elementals. They don't do anything specific and simply have to be tanked and damaged down, and he can start channeling Electrostorm, which puts line telegraphs across the entire area and needs to be dodged. Here you can see him stunning me just as I was about to get a big heal off on the tank, which is always a risky moment as he follows it up with his Electrostorm channeling. The interrupts on the stun are probably the most important part of this relatively short but tough fight. Then here we have the new mob, a Skyborn Tempest. They have 2 abilities. In one of them they charge forward, leaving a trail of AoE damage behind them. Don't stand in it, and secondly he can summon cyclones. This telegraph moves with the player for a moment, then during the second part it summons a cyclone that deals damage and has to be avoided. Then non-optional boss number 2 is this big wind elemental called Aethros. You fight him in a hallway filled with cyclones on each side, and this fight too consists of 3 phases. During phase 1 it's a relatively simple fight until you get a pop-up saying he is dissipating, at which point 3 creatures will be summoned that deal a fair bit of damage but don't seem to have anything specific to watch out for. As long as they are tanked correctly and the healing is on point, this should be manageable just fine. It is one of the most healing intensive parts of this fight though. Once the elementals are defeated, you will be swept backwards and the third phase of this fight will begin. The third phase consists of the entire party having to make their way back to Aethros as the tornadoes start moving from one side to the other. During this, he will be calling down lightning and circle telegraphs on the ground. You need to interrupt him here as quickly as possible. Once he is interrupted, he will go back into phase 1, followed by phase 2, the elementals, and followed by phase 3 of course, and this repeats until you've slain Aethros. And finally, the final baddie in this dungeon, none other than Stormtalon himself. The High Priest, the fellow that met us when we entered and promptly escaped, will summon this abomination. He is actually probably the easiest of them all, but certainly looks the most impressive, and really that's what counts. Again, interrupts play an important role in this fight. In phase 1 he will call down lightning strikes that don't do a whole lot of damage, but do cause a knockdown. 2 of these lightning strikes are summoned each time under 2 random party members. Additionally, he has a quick frontal cone attack during this, so the tank needs to keep him to one side, while the rest of the group doesn't stand next to the tank. Although the damage on this isn't that big. Eventually, Stormtalon will push everyone to the edge of the chamber and stun you in place. Make sure to break out of the stun as quickly as possible, as the entire room starts filling up with a telegraph at this point and you don't want to be in it. From the outside to the inside. It deals a high amount of damage every second. You have to interrupt him at this point or you will end up dying when the entire telegraph covers the room. Eventually he will choose one player, there will be a pop-up saying that electricity flows through player X, who essentially becomes the safe zone as the entire room fills up with a big red telegraph. You need to run to the chosen player at this point, while that player slowly circles Stormtalon as he leaves lightning strikes telegraphs underneath the chosen player that deal AoE damage to everyone in the telegraph. Stormtalon will alternate between these different phases until he is finally slain. And that right there is Stormtalon's Lair. I gotta say, as someone who has always been a fan of dungeons in MMORPGs, they've always been one of my favorite parts, this truly was a great experience. Mechanically, these dungeons are really interesting and challenging from the get-go, something I haven't seen in any MMO dungeon for a while. The bosses were tough, great to figure out, and simply looked fantastic, and even the trash mobs required some coordination and thinking. Suffice to say, this was an excellent first dungeon experience in WildStar, and I can't wait to see how the others turn out. So with that being said, my name's been Haas, this has been a look at Stormtalon's Lair in WildStar as a Spellslinger healer, and I'll see you in the next video.